All right, everyone. Good afternoon. We're going to give it just one more minute before we get started.
Okay, welcome everyone. Thanks for joining on Piano Tech Radio Hour. We're still probably having a couple people shuffle in here from the Zoom call, and we always like to give people a chance to get settled. We'll get started here in a minute. If you're out on Facebook and YouTube, be aware, oftentimes we'll clip the program that we're streaming out at maybe at about 20 minutes in, just to encourage you to actually jump in on the live Zoom call. And at that point, we'll put a link in the chat so you can hop in and be a part of the fun here, and join us. So it looks like it's probably about time to get started. So I'll give an intro so everybody knows what they've gotten themselves into today, and then we'll get started with a conversation with our featured guest. And so, as I mentioned previously, this is Piano Tech Radio Hour. Welcome. We gather here every Saturday to meet with and learn from the most fascinating and knowledgeable folks in the piano world. This could include manufacturers, rebuilders, musicians, makers of other instruments, and of course, piano techs. Our mutual goal is to become better at our craft, to help each other, and to create an ever more musical world together. Piano Tech Radio Hour is brought to you by Piano Technicians Master Classes. That's an online learning resource that brings you cutting-edge instruction from piano industry masters without leaving your home. You can find out more at pianotechniciansmasterclass.com. You can also subscribe to this program that you're watching right now or listening to called Piano Tech Radio Hour. It's just $16 a month. You get direct access to each week's private Zoom call, as well as the archival recordings of just about 190 episodes now in our member area. You can use the link to join Piano Tech Radio Hour of bit.ly/join PTRH. That's bit.ly/join PTRH. And now I would love to introduce our esteemed guest for today. This is Donna Wang Friedman. You're going to really enjoy this one. She's an award-winning pianist, a filmmaker, an app developer, and much, much more that we probably won't even get into in this program, but leaves you realms to explore. She's been inducted into the Steinway and Sons Teacher Hall of Fame in 2023 for her dedication to music education. Her impact extends to film with her award-winning documentary Never Fade Away. Premiering at NYU, the film has earned acclaim and even graced Times Square. As the inaugural recipient of the Women Who Innovate grant in 2023, Donna's album Heritage and Harmony Silver Linings earned 2 silver medals at the Global Music Awards, addressing AAPI violence. She also co-created the virtual concert series Heritage and Harmony with WQXR, celebrating Asian Pacific Heritage Month. Donna's influence spans education, hosting virtual programs with the National Women's History Museum. She featured on PBS. She's been featured there, as well as TEDx Santa Barbara, and co-hosts Her Music, Her Story on WQXR, highlighting women composers. Donna, as I've kind of done research with you, I know there's much, much more, as I said. So I'm excited for people to find out just the tip of the iceberg here. But welcome to Piano Tech Radio Hour.
Thanks so much for having me, Ethan. It means a lot.
Absolutely, it's certainly a privilege, and more we get to meet, like I said, some of the coolest people in this world of pianos all over the place, and it's a great opportunity. So we decided ahead of time as we were planning this event to highlight something up front where we're going to actually take the spotlight off of you a little bit, put it on someone else. As our listeners and our viewers and participants know, recently a good friend and connection of ours recently passed away. This is Tanya Regier. This is the wife of David Anderson, who used to host this program, I recently came up from her memorial service, which was like this wonderful celebratory event of somebody who had an incredible creative impact and has left a legacy, which we really appreciate. And I think that's like a nice segue into what you'd like to feature up front. So tell us a little bit, and we'll take a moment to pay tribute here.
Yeah. Well, I'm particularly very moved to be here in this show, Piano Tech, because the community, the Piano Tech community, the piano community in New York, lost a dear friend in December, and an extraordinary musician, recording engineer, Joe Patridge. I've known him forever. I mean, actually, I don't remember a time when I didn't know him. And I'd see him at every concert, and we've done several recordings together. In fact, it was right after the pandemic that we worked together with composer Stefania DeKennessy and recorded her set of 19 miniatures for solo piano that she composed during the pandemic. During the time when we were all isolating, and Stefania was thinking about what children were going through, how they were, getting through a difficult time. And so she composed these pieces with them in mind, reflecting on the emotions and feelings that we were feeling, they were feeling, from anxiety, isolation, even to moments of pure joy. So she wrote Microvids, and she said, hey, when the world is open again, let's record this. And so I said, that sounds like a plan. And she called me. She goes, you know what? Joe Patridge is available, and let's go to Clavier House and do this. So we went to Clavier House, and Joe says, hey, Donna, have you ever played on the Faziola piano before? And I said, oh my God, no. So for those of you who may not know what a Fazioli piano is, it's the most expensive piano in the world. I mean, it's literally inlaid in gold. It's handcrafted in Italy, and not many are made because of the labor-intensive work. But he had one at Clavier House, which had become his home away from home. And I tried it, and it sounded great. So I had this opportunity to record Microvids on this special piano with Joe in the recording room. So Stefania and I, we all had a great time. But I had no idea that would be the last time working with Joe. So Joe passed away in December, and it was quite sudden. So it took the piano community in New York by surprise. I'd like to read an open letter written by a mutual friend of ours, Jed Disler, who is the host of his radio show, Between the Keys. The death of Joseph Patridge, 1955 to 2023, at the age of 68, on December 18th, hit the greater New York piano community hard. Outpourings of grief, extensive remembrances, and dozens of photos flooded social media, bringing pianists and piano lovers together to mourn a revered record producer and sound engineer, a walking, talking encyclopedia of the piano repertoire and pianists, and a caring, loyal friend. Joe was a genius for building musical bridges with enthusiasm, experience, generosity, and authenticity. Joe's legacy will live on in his piano series that he created called Salon Concerts at the Clavier House, the same place that we did our recording, and which Jed Disler has so graciously stepped in as artistic advisor, director. And Jed's response to that is, my friend Joe unquestionably left big shoes to fill, and I will miss him. We all miss you, Joe. And I'd like to share 3 excerpts from the recording we did together, Microvids, by Stefani de Canisi.
Okay.
First piece is Reach to the Sky. Second, Hurry Up. And the last one is Clouds, where I know you are smiling down at us from the heavens above. This one's for you, Joe.
Beautiful. And I'll do a share of the screen here so we can listen to that.
I didn't think I was, this is like,
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing.
thank you.
Yeah, I think that just a reflection on kind of I didn't know Joe Patridge well, even though I've been involved in the New York community. There's sort of a lot of different circles. I know a lot of Clavier House, although again, I don't know it as well as I would like to get involved a bit more. I do know that when I think of Clavier House, I think that's real quality in the piano industry, real quality people and pianos and sort of artistry. But I think that what I wanted to share of kind of like our shared experience here is I think it's just so wonderful for people to have a legacy that they can share of their creative work and their presence. And so that's what I love about being able to share this here. That's what I loved about Tanya Regier, David's wife. She was a sculptor with these beautiful sculptures that will live on, and hopefully her legacy grows. And David Anderson, who co-hosted this program, we have all these archives of him on recording, teaching and sharing his gifts. So I love that. I love that we have things that we can remember people by. So thank you so much for sharing, and thank you so much for highlighting Joe. And so within this share, you alluded to the MicroVids project and the concert, and there's a concert upcoming.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
it's been an ongoing project. I mean, Stefania, who we've been friends for forever, she's been very patient with me because I get all these ideas. I will tell you that I admire composers so much because I myself, I don't have an original musical thought in my head. Everything that I tried to compose, I feel like plagiarism. But I like to be creative, and I like to think about music, and I live, eat, drink, and breathe music. And so after she brought me the MicroVids, and I teach children, and I started thinking, this would be so great if there were little rhyming couplets to introduce each of these little gems, these short little gems. So a week later, I get an email from Stefania, here you go. And she wrote these charming couplets that introduced each one. And then I said, this reminds me so much of a modern day Carnival of the Animals, because right now I think, the idea of mental health for our children, for tweens and teens especially, is such an important topic. And to discuss feelings and to be able to express them through music, I can't think of a better therapeutic way of getting through, difficult times. So I said to Stefania, I said, Carnival of the Animals was orchestra and piano. And so we had the orchestra version of MicroVids, orchestra and piano, and poetry recitation commissioned by the New Jersey Youth Symphony Orchestra, which is a fabulous orchestra made up of these wonderful young children, and led by the incredible conductor, Helen Chapio. And so they commissioned the orchestra part, the arrangement, and the wonderful actress, singer, Diana Solomon Glover will be reading the poetry, the rhyming couplets. We'll be performing this on Sunday, February 25th at 3 p.m. In Rahway at the Performing Arts Center. And so if you have kids, or it's not even just for kids, it's for anyone who loves music, poetry, we hope to see you there.
Perfect. Yeah, that's great. And as someone who lived in both New York and New Jersey, I can recognize Rahway and all the talent that's in New Jersey as well. So that's exciting. So February 25th, and we'll let, as I mentioned to you before we started too, we'll put that out on our newsletter for Floating Piano Factory. Of course, we have listeners throughout the world. If you're our fans in Belgium, we don't expect you to come to Rahway, New Jersey for the concert. But if you are in the tri-state area, you should check it out.
Yeah, it'd be great.
So speaking of tri-state area, New York, and so on and so forth, pretty much everybody in the world, more than a town in New Jersey, will recognize Times Square. And I think that that's a good transition to share that you have a recent exciting experience about Times Square to share, that we can talk about. Tell us what it is.
Okay, so first I have to tell you that I am a concert pianist. I'm a musician, and during the pandemic, I started sharing my father's story, his immigration story. how he escaped China and came to this country with nothing but his hopes and dreams, and how a radio and a waltz changed his life. And when I started sharing this story, online, I was getting all these wonderful messages, these heartwarming messages saying, "Oh my God, it's such a beautiful story." And then people would say, "Oh, my grandfather had a similar story," and it was just beautiful. So when the doors first started opening to live concerts, in person, I started sharing this story in concerts because the music was pivotal to this. And I actually had the story choreographed by the wonderful Ariel Grossman of Ariel Rivka Dance, and she choreographed the waltz that changed my father's life and my life too. So I did this live concerts, the story and the waltz. And after these concerts, people would come to me with tears in their eyes and said, "This is just, so moving, and we can really feel the story and the music. Would you consider making it into a film so it could reach more people?" So I thought about it and I said, "Yeah, you know what? Why not?" Because we have the dancers and, so I thought I'd make a little 4-minute little thing just about the dance and the story. And then the dancer who we'd been working with, who was amazing, when I booked a place to have the dance filmed, he couldn't make it, and I was devastated. I just was devastated, and I didn't know what to do. And then I remember that a very dear friend of mine from Juilliard, Alan Moverman, a pianist, is the pianist for the New York City Ballet. And I called him. I said, "This is just, out of the blue, and I don't think it's going to happen, but, here goes. Would you mind making an intro to me with Chun Wei Chan?" Now, Chun Wei Chan is the history-making dancer, the first ever Chinese dancer in the 75-year history of the New York City Ballet. And he is, a legend. And so Alan said, "Sure, he's a nice guy. Why not?" So he made the intro. I talked to Chun Wei and he said, "Send me the script." And I did. And he called me up and he said, "Yeah, I'll do this. I'm an immigrant. It's my story too."
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of after pinching myself 1,000 times, I said, "Well, if he's on board, I've got to add to the story, and I have to make people understand why my dad came to this country." And then I asked Chun if he would do an improv for the film, showing some of my father's, his struggles. So he did. So I ended up having, not a 4-minute, but a 12-minute short film. And I don't even remember how this happened, but on May 1st, 2023, a segment of that beautiful dance with Chun Wei Chan and his dance partner Xia Xiaotiao was on the huge Times Square screen. And it was thrilling. I mean, it was just beyond. It was there. I realized it was to celebrate AAPI Heritage Month. And yeah, so that's how it got up there. And I'll never forget that moment seeing it up there.
That's awesome. That's a big deal. And we have a clip to show, right?
Yeah.
It's one of these clips. Okay, awesome. Let's check that out. Let me do another screen share. And this is the screen I want to share.
That's our dancer.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Very cool. Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's one of those things that not everybody can boast, and it's fun to have it happen kind of almost as
It was fun to have
surprise.
happen. And it's also, that whole month leading up to the world premiere, which was on May 31st at NYU, was kind of like a dream because we were also on NBC News, CBS, ABC, WPIX, and it was just this, one thing after another, kind of steamrolling and giving, so much, attention and shining a light on not only the healing power of music, but the immigration experience. And I think that was really important. And that's really why I did this. It started out as a love letter to my parents, but I also realized that, it became much more with everything going on in the world and all the anti-Asian sentiments. Early in the pandemic, I was assaulted for being Asian. And that was the reason, the impetus for my actually doing as much work as I have, to represent the community. So,
Well,
yeah.
much appreciated. Sorry that happened to you.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's kind of, it's the sort of, if you sort of have a problem with those type of events, right? It's kind of this consistent no-brainer thing about the United States. It's a country built on immigrants,
Yeah.
So
No, it's
kind
true.
of
I mean, we
ideas.
all come from somewhere, right?
Yeah,
We
yeah.
all have these stories. And I think that the more we share our stories, the more people realize we're more alike than we're different. These are the stories that connect us, the ties that bind, your parents, your grandparents, all these stories should be shared. So,
Definitely. Yeah, and just because we've been using the acronym, just to clarify, so AAPI is Asian American and Pacific Islanders organization that inclined to stop the hate, towards those anti-racism going towards those particular groups. So thank you for sharing that. I think next thing we wanted to do was feature a teaser actually from Never Fade Away. Anything you wanted to say before we take a look at that?
there are a couple of, little shots from where, my father's hometown. And that was filmed actually, my husband filmed it from a phone. Oh no, from a video camera during our honeymoon when we visited. So
Okay.
yeah.
The trailer? The
Yeah,
teaser?
in the teaser. Yes, it's in the teaser.
Oh,
It's
oh,
just
there's a clip. Okay. Oh,
it's
that's
part of that. It's part of that. It's a little bit, you'll see just in the car, my mom, her face and yeah. Yeah.
all right. Let's give that a look.
He came to this country with nothing, nothing but his hopes and dreams.
Also very beautiful. Yes,
Thank you.
thank you for sharing. This is all reminding me. So I just came back from Palo Alto to visit, and I think you mentioned your daughter before we started, of course. Your daughter's out there in that area, um, and uh, and I was at Stanford University for, attending various events. Like I heard a poetry reading and kind of went to a couple lectures and things like that. But my friend who I was visiting as an artist, um, an Indian, which is sort of pseudo related to this, is just being an immigrant, who that's part of the story, But I think that what we noticed about some of the things we like to do together is kind of consume, we went to this poetry reading. There was like a physicist and an electrical engineer sharing poetry, translations that they had done. One was Turkish, one was Russian poetry. Interestingly enough, the Russian poetry translator made a similar comment to you. he didn't feel like he could write poetry, and that's why he liked to translate it. Similar like to play music. So we were trying to think about why we enjoyed things like that. Like, because in essence, going to a poetry reading these days is probably on the agenda of maybe less than 5%
Yeah.
of the population. And I think part of the reason is it takes a little bit of work. It takes a little bit of work mentally to attend a poetry reading, go to like see a dance performance, or go to the art museum and look at paintings and kind of process that, and we were reflecting that we like those kind of experiences that require, some work,
Well,
and
I
it's art.
think, yeah, I
Yeah,
actually think that there can be two perspectives that way.
yeah,
Yet it depends on what you want to get out of it.
yeah.
So if you're deeply entrenched in trying to understand the poetic meanings or whatever, yes, it takes work. If you want to go to a concert to escape into music, you
Yeah.
just come. You just come and you can just, let the music wash over you and, take you to where you want to go. And I think, everybody can, that's what's so great about art, I think, that you can experience it in your own way, the way that you are ready for and the way that you want to embrace,
Mm-hmm.
and there's no right or wrong way. Just, you should all just do it.
I appreciate that point. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I mean, also, and there's also the other aspect of it too, of just the work it takes to go out and do something these
Oh,
days,
yeah.
especially after the pandemic and with Netflix and all these things kind of pre-manufactured and ready to go, and it's all kind of laid out for you. But yes, I mean, either way, whichever way you approach it, I highly recommend people get out and about a little bit more, especially because we have the liberty to do it now and see live artistic things, dance, poetry, music. It adds such richness
Oh, yeah.
to the day. All right. Well, thank you for creating those type of opportunities as well. All right. So next thing we wanted to discuss a little bit was another sort of interesting milestone accomplishment for you. You're a talented person, a lot of these, and an active person who's making things happen. So of course, there's a lot of these things going on for you. So you recently were inducted into the Steinway and Sons Teacher Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank
And
you.
can you tell us a little bit, I guess foundationally, just about your experience as a teacher, and then also kind of this induction and how that came about, what that means to you.
Yeah. Well, I've been a teacher for decades. I've always loved kids. I have two of my own who are young adults. And I'm a huge proponent of, education, music education. And teaching young children, I have also a masterclass series at Princeton University where, I went as an undergraduate. But to me, the most fulfilling part of teaching is the young kids, because first of all, they're very impressionable. And second of all, they have this innocence and this incredible, thirst, to try new things and to learn. And it's just so rewarding. And I started piano when I was 6.5. That happened after my pet parakeet died. It's a silly story, but I cried so much. My mom, who was, Chinese, very superstitious, said, you have to stop crying. You have to stop crying. It's bad luck. So they actually bought a little upright piano, and I started taking lessons. And that's when I stopped crying, because I loved it so much. And I started telling stories through music. And that's what I do with my students. So when they learn any piece, I always tell them, I play it for them. And I said, I want you to think of a story that goes with this piece. And that's how they connect to the music. And some of the stories are amazing,
Yeah.
So I've been doing this and having my student recitals every year at Steinway Hall since, I guess, 1990s. And I've given a lot of concerts there at Steinway Hall, and we've had a wonderful relationship. So when I got this beautiful letter from the president of Steinway, uh, letting me know that I was being awarded, 2023 Teacher of the Year and was going to be inducted into the Steinway Teachers Hall of Fame. It was just, mind blowing. It was such an extraordinary, um, you know, award and recognition. And I tell you, I share it with every single one of my students, past, present, and future, because, without them, it's not even there.
Mm-hmm. Well, yes, congratulations. We'll show a clip here in a minute of that event as well. But just to make a comment on what you shared, I love that. I kind of like, I don't want to say forgot about it. It escaped my consciousness a little bit, but you brought it back in. When I was late high school, early college, I had the opportunity to study with a great musician, conductor named Barry Faulkner in the Chicago area. He did some conducting for Chicago Symphony, and he was a great pianist. And my mom finagled a way to get me lessons with this really great guy. And this was one of my first experiences as a young piano player, musician, with somebody that kind of brought me into that realm of drive and artistry. And I remember stories like, I was sick one week and he was like, "Did you practice?" And I was like, "Well, I was sick. I didn't get a chance to practice." And he was one of those guys that was like, "You were sick? You didn't get to practice? What are you talking about?" Like kind of like, you know, uh, just kind of like trying to raise your level and kind of make you into something better. And that was one thing I'm remembering that he shared with me. I believe it was specifically with the Chopin piece, maybe the waltz in E minor or something like that. And he said, make a story, as you play it. And I remember just the engagement that brought to me was just incredible, and I loved to like close my eyes and see the story unfold as I envisioned it and have it change and morph as you played through the music. And so yeah, thank you for sharing that. Definitely.
Well, actually, it's interesting because in 2008 or 7, when the New York City Board of Education said they were going to shut down music classes in the public schools, that's when I created my interactive classical music apps. And what my apps did, I tried to do at least, was to teach children how to understand the inherent narrative in classical music. So I had it animated, and my dear friends from New York Philharmonic, Carter Bray, the principal cellist, New York Philharmonic, Liz Mann, principal flutist of Orchestra St. Luke's, and my producer was David Frost, who he just beat Kanye West's record in the number of Grammys for producers. He has 25, Kanye 24. Sorry.
Yeah.
Anyway, so he produced that for me, and they were beautiful apps. And what I did was I went door to door to charter schools, inner city schools, and I presented them in workshops, on my dime, free workshops. And the kids loved it so much. They said they'd never heard music like this. And the teachers actually started using these apps, to teach how to write a story, because it's all about stories, So
Beautiful. And just how can people access the app?
you can't. You see, the thing is, when I did that, I was, I try to fill in gaps on my own. I'm an individual artist.
Sure.
I'm not, with a company, and I react very emotionally to these situations. So I jumped in there. I funded everything myself. I didn't know about grants, and I ran out of money. So I couldn't keep doing it. And in order to be on iTunes, you have to keep, upgrading it, updating, and I couldn't do it. And I'm also, so it's sad. So maybe at one time, if I ever have time again, I'll resurrect them, because they really were beautiful.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, yeah, Mel, something, put the word out there. Maybe somebody will be interested in helping out there. I can imagine, it's one of those things that requires someone's expertise, and, but it can't be, it's manageable. It's a manageable thing maybe to get
probably more
like
now than it was back in 2008. I was one of the first I was on the first apps, I think,
Yeah, for sure.
2009, something like that. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Interesting. All right, let's take a quick look at that clip at the induction into the Hall of Fame there. Let me share that.
Nominated by Steinway Hall in New York, Miss Donna Wang Friedman.
That's the president of Steinway.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's his name? Do you remember?
I'll have to.
Is that Ron Losby? It's not, is it?
No, no.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I feel like we have another guest on here who we have often. We have Hannah Reimann.
Oh
And
yeah, I know Hannah. Yeah.
yeah, she talks a lot about engaging with Steinway in kind of the characters that she's trying to convince to kind of aid in the journey of her project. But I forget who the president is.
Yeah.
Okay, excellent. Well, congratulations on that. I think we have one more thing that we might want to share. Are you able to go over the hour just a slight bit?
Sure,
By the way?
absolutely.
Okay. So if we need to, we will. We have another video maybe to share some kind of an outro type of thing. But I did want to go back here because I remember as we were charting through how we wanted to plan this program and show various things and talk about various things, I wanted to, in the beginning, get a little bit of your background, like what's your development, and we missed that. So, but let's begin at the end and at the beginning here.
Well, I did touch upon my
but tell me.
bird diet.
Yeah, I guess you did. You mixed it
Yeah.
in. But I mean, anything we missed because we didn't specifically address that question of, how you got into the whole piano world and really how it developed into such an important part of your life, like becoming central. Anything, that you can add to help give us a little bit more context.
Yeah. So I did not take the regular route of a pianist. I mean, I did in the beginning. I went to pre-college, Juilliard for 10 years. And, I love performance. I think I was very, very shy growing up. I was the only Asian kid in my school. And I think I felt more comfortable on stage than anywhere else at that time. I would just love performing. So I won all these competitions. But at some point, I felt like I wanted to learn a lot more. I felt like I wanted to broaden my horizons so that I would be a better artist. And so I went to Princeton University for undergraduate, and it's probably one of the best decisions I ever made because not only did I have the most extraordinary professors, but I met the most incredible people, students who are today my dearest friends, classmates. They also have incredible alumni network and always very, very supportive. But what happened after that was just, you'll laugh. So I wanted to go into artist management. I actually majored in economics for some very strange reason, but I did not like it that much. But I went to ICM. Back then, International Creative Management was one of the leading top management agencies for rock and roll and classical music. And I wanted to work in the classical music field. They didn't have room, so they put me on the 18th floor to the rock and roll division, which was fun because I love rock music. And I got to go to all these great concerts, David Bowie, Tina Turner, at the Garden, all these wonderful things. I got all of my friends in to Studio 54, Limelight, all the clubs for free, right? I was on, right. But because I was the new kid on the block, I was covering, these very, very late shows, 3 a.m. At the little seedy little places. And then I started couch surfing because I was living in New Jersey with my parents. and I was couch surfing, and then I was doing the assistant agent thing where I was typing up writers for artists, and I just started losing it because I missed playing so badly. I mean,
Sure.
it was fun, fun while it lasted. And so I ran kicking and screaming back to Juilliard, where I got my master's, studied with Adele, the great Adele Marcus. But those 2 years in the master's program, I kind of felt, you know, again, it wasn't after going to Princeton, I kind of felt like it just wasn't enough. Juilliard, of course, is top name, one of the greatest, conservatories in the world. And I'm grateful to have had that experience. But I did some touring because I won some competitions, and I kind of felt lonely. As a pianist, I wasn't part of an orchestra. I wasn't part of a chamber music group. And so you basically travel on your own. It's not glamorous like people think, because like the first year I was doing like ladies' luncheons throughout Ohio and stuff like that. And then, even with the, bigger concerts, you go from the airport to, the rehearsal backstage to the concert, back to your hotel, back to the airport. And in strange places, people are lovely. The audiences are always great, and I love performing. But it really wasn't for me. I know a lot of my colleagues who are, just, born for this kind of lifestyle, the touring nonstop.
Yeah.
They're terrific. And I think that's great. And I admire them so much. I missed my family, I missed my friends. So I decided, I will, settle down in New York and teach and figure something out. And my mom said, you know what? Being a musician, you don't make enough money. It's not a good thing. I have a friend of mine who has a real estate business. Go get your real estate license. So I said, okay, maybe that's a good thing to do. So I got my real estate license at NYU. I started working, and I was probably the only one in the office that didn't make a single sale. In fact, I would take clients to apartments and say, why would you spend so much money on such a small space? And these walls are so thin. And while we're practicing piano, they would hear it, a very musician mentality, right?
Yeah.
So that didn't work, right? And so I think at that time, I was probably 25. I hit 25. And I think 25 is a tough age for a lot of people. And I was really depressed. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't want to be a soloist. I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to do real estate. And a friend of mine from Juilliard said, let's go to a concert. I said, sure. Let's go to Barge Music. So Barge Music is New York City's floating concert hall. And it's beautiful, beautiful place, in Brooklyn, but facing New York, and beautiful views. So we went, and I sat there, and I'll never forget this concert. David Schifrin, the, extraordinary clarinetist, and Paul Neubauer, the amazing violist and a pianist who I don't remember, but, Paul and I had gone to Juilliard together, and they started playing the Kegelstadt Trio. And as soon as David's clarinet comes in with that beautiful, beautiful tone of his, I just started crying. I started sobbing. And after the concert, I realized that I had to be back in music. But I figured, you know what, maybe chamber music was the way to go, be with people. And I said, I'll go back to music, if only to play with Paul and David, if that's my only goal, So I called, Paul, and I said, hey, you want to do something? Can I play with you and David? And he said, let's call David. And they said, so, and I said, I want to play Kegelstadt. And they said, okay, come to the Lincoln Center, the Chamber Society, their rehearsal room in the Juilliard Tower. So I went, we read through the Kegelstadt once, and they said, oh my God, have you played this before? I said, no. So they said, it was great. So we started doing these concerts. And then I started playing with St. Luke's Chamber Ensemble and doing much more chamber music, which got me right back into music where I belonged, right? But again, after, and I'm so grateful. I, perform with Carter Bray, the cellist, and, the greatest musicians. There's always this feeling that I've had that I want to create, and, then I had the apps, and then I started creating different programs, as I said, I feel like on the resume, I should put in gap filler, because I feel like that's what I want to do, is to fill in gaps in the small way that I can as an individual artist. But then I learned that I could do things and collaborate with bigger institutions like WQXR, who have been so gracious and so supportive, the National Women's History Museum. And that's when I, decided, creating programs, educational programs, virtual programs during the pandemic, concert programs, highlighting music by women composers. That's my big thing too. And also composers from our BIPOC community, basically underrepresented artists. That's something that has become, very important to me. And there you have it. And here I am.
No, I identify with the crossing multiple domains, and trying to find your niche and filling the gaps,
Right.
helping out where you can see that it's necessary. So we should probably wrap up here pretty soon. I think what I'll do is ultimately when we broadcast, it was sort of pre-recorded, we'll show this clip also, this next clip that we had of some music as well. But for now, we'll kind of wrap up. But we'll sort of outro with this Quiet Poems compilation, which is very beautiful. So why don't we do this? Give us like any social media, website, stuff like that for people to check you out on. And we'll do the outro, and then we'll kick it over to that video. So let us know anything in that video you wanted to preface it with. Sound good?
Okay. Yeah. So social media, I'm on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, basically. And, my website is donnawangfriedman.com. And you can learn as much as you want about Never Fade Away, my education programs. Yeah, so
Perfect.
yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us. How about this compilation that we are going to see with Quiet Poems?
Yeah.
Anything you want to preface so that when people are viewing it and listening, they've got something to think about?
Yes, so Quiet Poems is a set of 3 piano pieces, solo piano pieces, composed by my, dear friend Kim D. Sherman. And as she says, that these are 3 poems, 3 songs to nature. And again, we created this beautiful video with Carl Sonnenberg, really, during the pandemic, towards the end of the pandemic, when we were all sheltering at home and wanting desperately to be out there, to be with people, to be with nature, and through music. And I think, the video captures so exquisitely the music, which when you listen to it, I think, it's not like your standard, classical piece. It's about sound. And then with each piece, it becomes more about silence and listening to what's so important, what comes between the notes. So I hope you will all enjoy it. And again, thank you so much for having me on your program. Really appreciate it.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Thanks for all your commitment, dedication. Your passion is very apparent. Okay, we have reached the end of another musical journey here at Piano Tech Radio Hour. Thanks again for Donna for joining us today. As always, we're brought to you by Piano Technicians Masterclasses, cutting edge instruction for piano industry masters without leaving your home. If you join us today by signing for just a session individually, make your life more convenient. You could subscribe to Piano Tech Radio Hour at just $16 a month. You get the recording of today's session in our member area, as well as automatic registration for each week's new session. You could sign up at bit.ly/join PTRH. That's bit.ly/join PTRH. And we'll see you all again next week. Thank you, Donna.
Thanks so much.